r/AskReddit created by routinereddit. How would you feel about a law that requires people over the age of 70 to pass a specialized driving test in order to continue driving? That's a great idea. I'm going to call my 68-year-old congressman and ask him to support such legislation. Edit. Most driving laws are passed by state legislators, who usually do drive themselves. And if they ever need to get a vote on such an issue, it's not like seniors are the best at getting themselves to the polls. Oh, you just made it all make sense. Younger voters are afraid to drive to the polls, lest they be hit by old farts in big cars careening down the road to cast their ballot. Maybe some are even being killed before reaching the polls too, reducing the number of younger voters further. You want more sense? Many old people at that age are retired and have all the time in the world to follow politics and get to the polling booth, whereas younger people are too busy with work, school, and relationships to think about that stuff, let alone participate. I'm beginning to think I could write for The Onion, a safe stay-at-home job. It'll keep you off the streets and safe from those old people who keep running over young people. Here in Illinois, my grandpa had to do it every year after 75. I think older drivers definitely need to be retested and have restrictions put on their licenses to driving at night, driving only within certain distances of the home, driving above certain speeds, etc. up to and including revocation if found to be impaired to significant degree. And I'm staring down 70 myself. In Japan, they have special decals that identify new drivers and the elderly, which I think is a good thing. If you see someone with an elderly tag, you might not assume that driver sees everything you do or reacts as quickly as you do. I had trouble getting my dad to quit driving because I knew he couldn't see. He couldn't tell me from my daughter from across the room. I called the DMV for suggestions and they sent him a letter to come in for a vision test. He passed. He was in his 90s with cataracts and dementia. We had a lot of rancor over this issue and he ended up living with my brother, whom he would actually listen to, and he quit driving. I'm an optometrist. You'd be surprised at how many patients come in and tell me they failed the DMV vision test, but the person passed them anyway. It's ridiculous. Those DMV people that pass people who fail eye tests are criminals. Why are they doing that? Jesus. I was 17 when I took the vision test for my license. The guy doing the vision test had me look into a little box and ask me which of these signs is farthest away. I have no vision issues of any kind and great depth perception, but for the life of me I couldn't tell. I answered him honestly, if sarcastically, and said, I don't know, they're all about 10 inches away in a wooden box. All he said was "you-ha," and passed me. He probably just thought I was some asshole kid, but he didn't do anything to follow up, me saying very clearly that I couldn't tell. I work at a driver licensing office. Maybe I can help for clarity. When it comes to depth perception, we need to give that part of the test, but you can't technically fail that part where I'm at. If your depth perception sucks, I need to tell you that objects may be closer than they appear, but we license those with vision in only one eye, which is zero depth perception. As long as you have 20/30 vision, no diplopia, and adequate peripheral vision, 120 degrees, you're likely to pass. Edit. And not severely colorblind. Ugh, please. My grandma is practically blind and went to take her driving vision test to renew her license. She failed, but the lady at the DMV felt bad, so she had her take it again and gave her hints so she could pass it. So now my practically blind grandma is out on the road still. It's for their safety as much as anyone else's. I'm so mad that the lady at the DMV was so irresponsible as to let her keep driving. That's the kind of thing that should get you fired from the DMV, if not charged with a criminal offense. I know of someone north of 80 years old who had horrible cataracts, had refused to visit an optometrist for years, and was not fit to drive. They avoided eye examinations because they knew they would have their license taken. When they finally went to get a cataract surgery scheduled, their doctor told them that if they agreed not to drive until after the surgery and after their eyes healed, they would not have their license taken. Legally, they can drive and plan to, but holy heck, they should not be anywhere near a road. I'm all for retesting because it would catch crap like that. What's equally important is that elderly people who depend upon driving in order to attend appointments, social events, and grocery shop, but are no longer fit to drive, should be given suitable recourse. Many elderly folks live independently from their families for reasons dictated by newer social norms and post-industrial economy. Multi-generational households are less of the norm than in past decades because younger people must relocate to where the jobs are. Furthermore, North America is expansive in geography. Many people don't live in very densely populated cities where they can walk, use a taxi/Uber, or use public transportation. They are almost obliged to drive. I'm all for legally taking away the keys of incompetent drivers. We did it to my grandmother who grieved over it deeply. But we must also implement adequate social programs so that revoking a license isn't a social death as well. Leave a like, comment, and subscribe for daily Reddit videos. Old retired guy here. 74 years old to be precise. I would accept such a test, provided it was only to catch really age-related diseases, dementia, poor reflexes, etc. I live in a retirement community and most of the people who should not have a license have already given them up. The first day I was here I heard a conversation between two guys. Guy 1, I just turned 88 and turned in my driver's license. Guy 2, why would you do that? Guy 1, I don't want to spend the rest of my life in jail. I spent a lot of time at my grandparents' retirement community's pool. One particular shocker was overhearing a woman say she was driving around and no longer taking her anti-seizure medication. Several residents sold their cars and bought golf carts and could get around easily that way. Edit to at, my grandmother ended up bumping into several buildings and another car before deciding to sell her car. But she won't give up her license, just in case she decided to take a taxi to a dealership that would gladly sell her a car. When I had a seizure I was told my license was suspended, which it turned out it wasn't, since I went and got my normal license, was on a permit, soon after no problems. I live in South Florida, Boca area, and am an attorney. Many clients are in retirement communities. I always insist on driving to them. I've only lived here a little over a year. I've witnessed on multiple occasions people driving motorized wheelchairs on 6-lane roads. I'm all for attesting people, however, I'm not sure what you mean by specialized. The requirements for good driving don't change with age, so it should be the same test. Maybe he means a few preliminary questions before even getting near a vehicle. Sir, do you know what year it is? 1922. We had to say Dickety because the Kaiser had stolen our word 20. Abe Simpson. So I tied an onion to my belt, which was the style at the time. I didn't have any white onions because of the war. The only thing you could get was those big yellow ones. Now, to take the ferry cost a nickel, and in those days, nickels had pictures of bumblebees on 'em. Jim 5 Bs for a quarter, you'd say. If it's a question an older driver needs to be able to answer we might as well ask everyone, even if it's much less likely to be relevant for younger drivers. Do you think you can still drive? I'm 17. What do you mean still? I used to grandpass it a guy in his early 90s who thought that, since his DL was still valid, they're good for 10 years here, he was okay to drive, despite having balance and muscle control issues. Of course, one of his sons, maybe in his 50s, had worse issues, couldn't use his hands, drank lots of alcohol, yet still drove. Apparently his family didn't realize those last two parts. Ideally, we'd all be retested every 10 years or so, until we hit 60, then we are retested every 5 years. However, older folks are a huge voting bloc and it's unlikely this would ever pass. This is probably the best case scenario. I know dangerous drivers at any age, but have tests more often at younger and older ages for obvious reasons. Testing people under 60 is just a huge waste of money. People should have to pay to be retested. Driving is a privilege, not a right. I'd be okay with it if over 70 drivers are statistically more likely to get into accidents. I just looked it up for the US. I found a 2012 report 16 to 19 has the highest number of accidents, and then the rate decreases until 70. From 70 on, the rate of accidents start increasing again, but they never get back to the 16 to 19-year-old rate. I would believe those statistics. It actually never made sense to me to treat those under 18 as minors in regards to most laws, and not allow them to enter contracts etc. But then trust them with a ton vehicle. Same goes for drinking age. If you can't trust someone to drink responsibly, I don't think you can trust them for responsible driving either. I know that in US driving is required in rural areas etc, but then the drinking and contract age limits are the ones that are wrong.